Taped from New Jersey, it's the SNL Nerds, the show where two comics from New Jersey nerd out about Saturday Night Live. I'm your co-host, John Trumbull.
And I'm your co-host, Darren Patterson.
And we're very excited. We have a guest with us in the studio this week. Well, not in the studio. We're recording this remotely. I don't know why I said in the studio. I'm dumb. But we do have a guest.
The world is our studio, John, wherever we are.
The world is our studio, Darren. And we do have a guest. We have one of the co-hosts of the Gutting the Sacred Cow podcast, Miss stand-up comic, Kevin Israel.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
How are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, because this week we're covering a big favorite movie of yours. Is it your all-time favorite movie?
Yes. 100%.
Okay, we're covering 1984's Ghostbusters, starring Bill Murray with Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis and Ernie Hudson and Sigourney Weaver and Annie Potts and Rick Moranis, and you know the deal. It's Ghostbusters.
John, name the entire cast right now. Keep going. Go.
William Atherton was the EPA guy, and
Annie Potts.
What was the name of the hotel manager? The guy that hired them.
He's one of those actors. He's one of those classic character actors. He's a hey, that's guy. It's that guy. Do you know his name offhand, Kevin?
I don't.
Okay. But
guys, we're doing it. Ghostbusters, the classic film written by Dan Aykroyd and the late great Harold Ramis, directed by the great Ivan Reitman, came out June 8th, 1984. Had a budget of 25 to 30 mil, ended up grossing $295 million, ended up being one of the highest grossing comedies of the 80s, and the second highest grossing movie of 1984. Got beat out by another SNL alum, Eddie Murphy, with Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, I was forgetting that Beverly Hills Cop was the same year, because you were saying it was the second highest grossing. I was like, what could have possibly beat Ghostbusters? But
I looked at.
Cop, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I looked at the 1984. It had some hits come out in that year. Like, so number one, second. So as far as the highest grossing films of 1984, number one, Beverly Hills Cop. Number two, Ghostbusters. Number three, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Wow.
Number four, Gremlins. Number five, Karate Kid. Number six, Police Academy. Number 7, Footloose. Number 8, Romancing the Stone. Number 9, Star Trek 3, Search for Spock. And number 10, Splash. I mean, this year had some.
What a
hits.
year of movies!
That is a killer year of movies, man. Wow, 1984. I mean, that was the shit.
It really was. This was fantastic. Like I saw, like this movie came out in June 8th of 84. Karate Kid came out later that same month. It came out like June 22nd or something.
Nice.
And you want to know when I saw the movie?
When did you see the movie?
June 8th, 1984.
Nice.
Wow.
How old were you, Kevin?
I was 8.
Okay. I was 12 when this movie came out. Darren, how about you?
84, so I was 7.
No, actually, June 8th, that's before my birthday, so I would have been 11 when this came out. So I would have seen this before I was 12. So
okay. But Kevin. So wait. So did your parents take you? Did you know you wanted to see it? With this, like, how did you?
I don't. So my oldest sister, I have 3 older sisters, and they're all considerably older than me, 10 to 12 years older than me.
Oh.
And my oldest sister, who I had, not a lot of relationship with when I was 8,
Sure.
She took me to see it, and I have no idea how that. I have to ask her sometime how that came about. But I remember thinking like it was like my big, because she was in high school and I was, in 3rd grade or whatever. And I remember thinking, this is like my big sister is taking me to see this movie. And I must have wanted to see it, I assume. And I was terrified the whole movie. But I didn't want to give away, because I didn't want my sister to think that I was scared. And it wasn't until I saw it probably 4 years later that I realized, oh, this is a comedy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with this movie. It's like it rides that line between comedy and straight up sci-fi action, almost horror kind of movie. Because I mean, like there were scenes like when Dana Barrett gets possessed and those arms come out of the chair and hold her down and drag her into the. That's genuinely terrifying.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that is a scary moment. Kevin, I wonder if like it might have been as simple as your sister wanted to see the movie and she was stuck with you for the day, so you got to tag along.
I don't think my sister's not a movie buff, and she never was.
Uh-huh.
I must have wanted to see the movie, and my parents said, "Just take him to see it. Take him to see it." And it's not, 8 years old in 1984. That the movie was a little beyond me,
Sure.
obviously. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I didn't even get that it was a comedy. But I mean, it really did. Like all the scene, the scene where in the library where the ghost goes from a librarian to a monster, that scared the crap out of me. I mean, I remember wanting to leave at that point. And you're what, 5 minutes into the movie?
It scared the crap out of me. And I remember wanting to leave the theater, but I didn't want to look like a baby in front of my sister. So I just kind of shut up and dealt with it.
Okay.
Wow. That's
Man up.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I mean, it's kind of hardcore for a PG movie because it's 1984, so it's right before they introduced the whole PG-13 thing. I think that they started with the PG-13 rating because Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was kind of gory,
Right.
but they realized that R is going to cut off half the potential audience, so let's introduce another rating. And I forget what the first PG-13 movie was. I want to say Gremlins, but
I think it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have
Yeah,
to
like
that.
Okay. Yeah, like now you think about it. Oh yeah, in Temple of Doom, a man did pull a beating heart out of the chest of another man.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I don't know if that's for kids.
Yeah, not for really young kids, certainly.
Oh, so I did a quick Google's check because I don't want to take credit for this. So Indiana Jones was the last PG movie of that ilk, and parents were so upset about the heart extraction that when Red Dawn came out, they made it PG-13.
Red Dawn.
And the Red Dawn was the first PG-13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wolverines.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
All right. Okay. Well, before we start, talking about Ghostbusters and getting all into the guts of it, like we ask all our guests here at SNL Nerds, Mr. Kevin, like, what's your history with the show Saturday Night Live? Are you a casual fan? Are you a diehard fan? Do you dip in and out? Do you have favorite cast members, favorite sketches? Tell us, good sir, your SNL origin story.
I would say I'm somewhere between a casual fan and a rabid fan. I don't know where you want to put that on your meter. I definitely have dipped in and out over the years. I think I was more actively following during kind of the Adam Sandler years, and then I faded out for a while. And I've the past couple years I've been more actively watching it, especially since they started putting up all the skits on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm 45 and I am unable to stay up to watch Saturday Night Live. I try to make it usually to the Weekend Update, and I rarely do. So lately I've just wake up in the morning and watch, and it's the best way to watch it because it cuts through all the commercials and all the, I don't typically want to watch the musical guest, so I don't watch that.
Yeah.
If I'm going to watch two things, I'm going to watch the cold open and the Weekend Update, and then I'll maybe watch some of the actual skits. But I've always, as once you get into comedy and you start knowing some of these people and knowing, tangentially knowing people who are actually getting onto the show, it sort of becomes a little more closer to you than just the average watcher. So I definitely feel a very distant connection to the show.
Okay. But when you were into it, sounds like you were like Adam Sandler was your guy. He was one of your faves.
I don't know if he was one of my faves, but that's just when I remember, watching the, Chris Farley, Adam Sandler time and being more aware of it. And then I didn't watch for probably a while. I think, you always hear about it when, especially through politics, because when they're really going hard on, whatever political story is in the news at the time, you always end up catching it. And obviously the Trump years were, I think nothing made Lorne Michaels more happy than when Trump would say something, because then he had a whole episode written.
Oh yeah, that was. We've talked about the Trump years on this podcast, but it seems like it seemed like because Trump would say something insane every week almost. So like
every
SNL
20 minutes almost.
every 20 minutes, yeah. So it seemed like SNL was like, all right, now we got to talk about this. Now we got to talk about what he said. Now
Yeah.
it almost like by the end of it, we kind of, I mean, me and John, we kind of got fatigued from it. We're just like, I really can't do another sketch about the latest insane thing he said. It's too much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, so when you
Yeah,
first got in,
exhausting.
yeah, it was. But so when you were first into SNL, what was it that had you coming back for more? Was it a certain sketch or a certain cast member or anything like that?
You know, I think my two favorite sketches of all time, and I don't know that this doesn't follow anybody's, you know, typical opinions where they're going to say, oh, you know, I loved Pat or the, you know, Celebrity Jeopardy. My two favorite skits were, and my wife and I watch these all the time. My favorite skit of all time is Your Future Second Wife.
Ooh,
Oh, we love that one.
I've watched it at least 50 times and it never stops being funny to me. They're just brilliant in that. Everybody in that entire sketch is brilliant.
Yeah.
and it's such a great concept. And I'm so glad they never did another one because I think it would have ruined it. But it's such a great sketch. And it just shows how strong Poehler and Faye were.
Yeah.
That it's just such a monster. And it's a simple idea and it's just really funny. And then my second one, and I can't remember the title of it, but it was with Justin Timberlake, and it was when they were all immigrants coming over.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about what his descendant is going to do.
Yeah. And
Yes.
and he really, really kind of takes the piss on himself.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and then Andy Samberg shows up, and he says, oh, maybe my kid could also be Faye, my future ancestor. And Justin Timberlake goes, you know what, Jew? And Samberg goes, there it is.
I'd forgotten the ending of that one.
And that's another one that I consistently go back to. And more recently, they've had a couple of sketches in the kind of the same vein where it's a news report and they're going to a scene of a natural disaster, and the name change office was affected. And
oh yes, yeah.
And it's all the stupid names, and it's the most juvenile concept for a whole sketch, but it's hysterical, and I think they've done it at least 3 times. Mm-hmm. And the cast members usually end up breaking character because they're all laughing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, right. Yeah, they did that concept like the Chris Rock episode when Rachel Brosnahan hosted.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of sophomoric names like Huge Ass and Dick Hurts and Edith
I remember Ego being like Edith Puffy.
Yes.
One, so.
It's childish, but it still works.
Yeah, that's the level I'm working
at. It's still real to me, damn it.
So okay, so you saw Ghostbusters when you're 8. When did the Ghostbusters super fandom get really, really started for you?
When the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon, hit, I think I had the toys. I watched the cartoon. I still would argue that was probably one of the best cartoons of all time. Mm-hmm. Because it actually, some of them did have pretty creepy, if not scary, kind of tones to them, and I thought, and it didn't follow the movie beat for beat. The characters all looked different, and
right.
The overall their behaviors were the same, but I loved that cartoon, and I watched it religiously. And then, like I said, I got the toys, and then I probably went back to the movie when I was a little bit older, probably around 11 or 12, and that's when I got that. Oh, this is a comedy. And then I think probably in college is when when we you'd sit down and you'd pick what movies you want to watch, or if had a movie night or something, and I would always pick Ghostbusters, and my friends would be like, we can't watch this again. And I'd be like, but we can.
We can, and we will.
Sit down.
Yeah. And then you just flexed a bicep.
Yeah.
And everyone fell in line. Kevin is very muscular, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, he's a beefcake.
He works out.
I am. You're right.
He's like, I would argue if I could, but I'm a tall drink of water.
So yeah, and then it's once I graduated college and I moved out on my own and I got my own apartment. I remember I put up a Ghostbusters poster in my room, which was like I was like regressing a little bit. But and then I got the two DVD set when I think it might have been the anniversary edition and yeah, I've just always loved the movie. For me, it's just a perfect mix of it, and I think it's one of the only movies that does it so well as a mix, as Darren was saying, horror and sci-fi and comedy almost
Yeah.
seamlessly.
Yes, yeah, it really blends those two tones together, just beautifully, and I think that comes partly from Dan Aykroyd's enthusiasm and knowledge of like genuine supernatural lore, and also he's got a great comedy mind, and Harold Ramis has a great comedy
Oh
mind,
yeah,
and Ivan Reitman's a great comedy director, and Bill Murray's one of the all-time great comedy actors. So I mean, it's just a recipe for greatness,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty phenomenal. It's this movie. I mean, God, listeners, you're gonna hear just three grown men just gush over this movie for the next hour and a half plus. So just deal with it.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little beforehand, and we're not going to get as deep into the plot as we usually do. We're not going to go through it point by point. This is just going to be more of a freewheeling discussion about the movie because we've all seen it, we all know it. We figure most everyone listening to this has seen it and knows it as well as we do. So
Right. I mean, if you haven't seen it, here's a quick elevator pitch. We're off IMDb. Three parapsychologists forced out of their university funding set up shop as a unique ghost removal system in New York City, attracting frightened yet skeptical customers. That's basically what the movie's about.
yep.
Boy, does
And-
that dumb it down.
Yeah. we know our audience.
For me,
No, I'm joking, guys. We love you all. You're fantastic.
But
for me, one of the reasons the movie is so great is because you watch a lot of horror movies or sci-fi movies now, and there's no humor in them whatsoever.
right.
There's no, and I think the reality is that if you took 5 guys, and put them into like a horrifying situation, one of them would be cracking jokes because that's just a natural way to deal with a stressful situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of movies just overlook that because they want to build up so much tension, or they want to make it so dark and gritty. And there's so much emphasis on the making the tone of the movie one specific angle that they forget about natural human behavior. Like, I feel like if you look at the way all 4 of them react to things, Egon is obviously, very scientific, very analytical. Ray is just excited. Ray is so enthusiastic about the whole concept of it. And Venkman is kind of the sarcastic skeptic that's going along just because it suits his needs at the time, and he's willing to throw. He's the comedic entity in the movie. He's the one it's kind of aware of the things he's saying, and he's actually trying to be funny. All the other funny lines just come along because it fits the situation. Peter Venkman is being funny because that's who he is.
That's true. That's true. And then you have Winston as the layman, who's sort of the audience surrogate.
Exactly.
Who, whenever we need to explain something like, oh, this is how the traps work, which the climax of the movie is kind of dependent on you knowing at least the basics of that.
Right.
So he's an easy person to explain stuff to. So yeah, all the characters have a function in that comedic trio or quartet, as it is by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And a great point about Winston is, so everybody knows that Eddie Murphy was originally supposed to be Winston.
Right.
And I think the movie might have not been as good had that happened. I mean, I would love to have seen it, but I think it would have been too much comedy.
I just rewatched, to prepare for this, I just rewatched the episode of Ghostbusters on the movies that made us.
Oh, I just watched that too. Oh,
on
shit.
Netflix. Yeah. And Aykroyd says that it was originally going to be, it was still going to be just a trio. I think they would have eliminated one of the other characters. I think it was going to be Belushi, Aykroyd, and Eddie Murphy.
Right. I mean, we actually mentioned that on our Belushi episode when we talked about the doc, where Aykroyd was writing this movie for him and Belushi to star in, because, like, I think at that point Belushi was kind of on the downslide because he had starred in some movies that hadn't done so well. 1941, Neighbors. and he was writing this for. Was that
Continental Divide?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like, so he was writing this to sort of, get Belushi back in the limelight. But unfortunately, Belushi passed away as he was writing this screenplay. But
Yeah,
this
would have really made it a different movie.
Yeah, I mean that's a completely different movie because I mean, obviously Venkman was tailored for Bill Murray, and I understand like a lot of the lines that people think are improv are actually scripted. There are some genuine improvs in there, but they also said like, yeah, Bill's smart enough to know when the material is good. So, but he plays it in such a spontaneous way that it seems like it's an improv a lot of times.
right, and I think that's why people really. I mean, in this movie, I think like Bill Murray Venkman is kind of the standout because he kind of plays it, like you said, Kevin, where he's constantly cracking joke, cracking wise. Nothing seems to really phase him at all, and I feel like a lot of guys, especially kind of, like really, really dig that. Where it's like a dude who's just kind of going through life, conducting these tests at Columbia where he works, where he's trying to like get a chick and like, electroshock.
His introductory scene is him literally electric shocking a student and trying to sleep with the female student. And you still like him. You like him from the go. And that is how charming Bill Murray is.
You can keep the $5.
If anyone else did this in a movie, you would be like, what a dick. But because it's Bill Murray, you go with it.
I don't think anybody would argue that Peter Venkman definitely has a rapey vibe to him.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, that was viewed very differently than it is in 2021.
That's true. The standards have changed, and rightly so. But
yeah, I think I remember seeing like online somewhere, somebody mentioned, later on in the movie where Bill Murray goes to see Dana Barrett, but she's possessed by Zool, and he has to like knock her out, and he's calling Egon to see what to do next and he says, I gave her some Thorazine to calm her down. I gave
her 30 cc's of Thorazine.
Yeah, and I'm like,
and it's like, you just take that on a date, do you?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, wait, he just had that on him? Thorazine?
Yeah. I remember
Bill Murray or Bill Cosby? Who are you talking about?
Yeah, I remember having a Facebook discussion about Ghostbusters, and one of my friends was like, well, obviously Peter Venkman is a date rapist. And I was like, I don't know if I can argue with you.
Yeah, you really can't, but
you don't just go to a drugstore and pick that up.
Yeah, that's not Advil.
But that was the I mean, I don't want to say beauty, but that was sort of the theme in the 80s. The guy who was slick enough to, sneak his way into a girl's pants. Mm-hmm. He was the cool guy.
And that was the guy you wanted to be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, there was a point where we all kind of went, I don't know if it was Bill Clinton or at some point.
Well, also, this is early 1980s, so it still has that, the sexual revolution thing. AIDS hadn't become a thing yet. I mean, it was out there, of course, but it hadn't hit the national news until like 85. So there was still that kind of vibe going on where it's just, get some.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Right. But it really is amazing. Like that's a ballsy introductory scene.
It is. And also another thing I think people really liked about Venkman is just that he kind of thumbs his nose at authority throughout this whole movie, like the way he, when he gets chewed out by the dean at the university, he just kind of brushes it off. And of course, the iconic scene where he gets chewed out by Walter Peck from the EPA. And like Walter Peck comes in saying, "Hey, I'm with the EPA. I need to see where you store your ghosts, or else I can shut you down and whatnot." And I think for like anybody else, they would be kind of scared, like, "Oh shit, this guy's coming in, threatening to shut down our business." But Peter Venkman's like, "No, go get a court order. I don't give a fuck."
Which, and by the way, I hate to put on this hat, but I was a lawyer in a past life, and I also worked for state government for many, many years. Walter Peck, while they do make him out to be dickless, he was completely in the right.
Oh yeah,
they
don't have the proper zoning.
Yeah, I mean, they had to get all sorts of permits from the DEP and the EPA, construction, city, state. I mean, for what they were doing, which didn't even exist, there was all sorts. And I respect the movie for putting that character in to say, hey, and to bring a little realism to it and say, you guys are running a business that should have gotten certain licenses and you didn't.
Yes.
And now, of course, they made the character a foil who kind of who really, he's the one who pushes the movie through. Because if you think about it, if Venkman was nice and just said, "Yeah, I'll just take you now. Let's talk about it. Here's what we're doing," and he said, and then Peck would have said, "Oh, well, you guys should have really filled out this paperwork. Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get our lawyer on or whatever." The movie would have never happened because Venkman had to be a jerk. The rest of goes. You got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That was Venkman caused the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah.
No lies detected, Kevin. Yeah, Venkman always has to be the smartest guy in the room, or if he's not the smartest guy in the room, he's the biggest smartass in the room.
Right.
Yeah. He's the Tony Stark of the Ghostbusters world.
Yes.
Exactly.
And
the
also movie also like establishes all the characters really well and really quickly. Like, I mean, we when we first see Egon, he's the ultra serious guy, and we make a reference to him at one point trying to drill open his head as an experiment, and Egon's only response is, "That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me."
And by the way, that was improv.
Yes. I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie does a great job, and I going back to the very opening scene with Venkman. The reason I love that scene after watching it so many times is because at the very end, he actually proves his point in the experiment. The kid gets the squiggly lines, and they said, "What?" He says, "What's the point of this experiment?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm trying to prove the negative reinforcement's impact on psychic ability."
Yeah.
And so because the kid gets shocked so many times, he actually gets the card right. Yes. And that would have proved his whole thesis, but he was more concerned with actually getting laid than proving his thesis.
Yes. And that by the way, it's based on a real experiment, like where they were doing some sort of experiment with college students, and they were administering the shocks on wrong answers, but the real purpose of the experiment was to see how willing people would be to shock their fellow students, and it was surprising like how vicious people got when they had a chance.
Wow.
And the cards that they're using are real cards used to test psychic abilities, if you believe in that sort of thing. They have like the 5 patterns. I think they're called Zen something cards. I can't find it on the IMDb trivia right now because the IMDb trivia page for Ghostbusters is a mile long. But I think
I'm looking at it now.
Cards or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, by the way, the actress in that scene, Jennifer Runyon, I also know her because I've seen her pop up in some other things over the years. She's in the pilot episode of Quantum Leap, and she's in one of the Brady Bunch reunion movies, A Very Brady Christmas. She took over for the Cindy Brady actress. So she's fake Cindy.
Wow.
Faux Cindy? Oh, wow. All right. Didn't know
Faux
that.
Cindy. Faux Cindy. I've always wanted them to have fake Jan, fake Marsha, and fake Cindy to get together and do a movie. I think that would be fun.
Dare to
not
dream.
The Brady's?
Yes, exactly. just get the Doppel Bradys all together and
dare to dream.
Oh, wait, they're called Zener cards.
Zener cards. Thank you.
Okay, nice. All right, well, yeah, let's keep talking about this movie. Let's talk about, hey, you know what? We should talk about the great Rick Moranis, who plays Louis Tully, which is a role that was originally supposed to be played by John Candy, but I think they came to creative differences. Like John Candy wanted to play it one way, and Ivan Reitman wanted him to play it another way, so they kind of parted ways with that.
Right.
But still, again, if John Candy was in this movie, it would have been a totally, completely different movie.
Yeah, he wanted to play it with a German accent, and he wanted to have Dobermans.
German.
And,
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I. All right, it's
in my notes for this, I have Rick Moranis is brilliant, and then a line that stuck out to me because he's Dana's creepy neighbor, and he's obviously got a little bit of a thing for her, and he's kind of leaving her alone, but he's just too oblivious to pick up the signals. And at one point he says like, "Oh yeah, the creep down the hall called the manager because her TV was too loud," and I just had to stop in a minute. And I was like, wait, what does Louis Tully consider creepy? Because he's obviously not picking up on the vibe he's putting out there.
Yeah, there's one line I really love that Rick had, in the party scene he had at his place,
Mhm.
where he's talking to all the guests, and he tells one of the guests, "Yeah, I invited,"
Yeah.
because he's a tax attorney. He said, "Yeah, I invited clients instead of my actual friends, so I can write this all off as a business expense." Hey, you enjoying your food there, man? Like, that's a joke I didn't get till I was older, and now it's
Yeah.
like that's hilarious.
And when like a pair of guests come into the party, he introduces them to everybody by telling them about what he did on their taxes. He's like, "Hey, yeah, we got this turnover rate, and so they're okay."
Ted and Annette Fleming. That is that I love that line when he comes in and he goes, "Hey guys, this is Ted and Annette Fleming. He's got a carpet cleaning business or something, and she's got a bonus something," and he tells their whole finances. I love that scene. And by the way, I would argue that Louis Tully actually isn't trying to get into Dana Barrett's pants. I
Oh,
think
you don't
he's
think
just genuinely an overly friendly neighbor who wants to like have always be the center. Like he wants people to come over. He wants to be that guy. Because I don't think he has that in his body. Because because when there's that very busty woman at the party and she's like, "I'm leaving," and he's like, "Oh well, we could date." Like he's the opposite Peter Venkman.
That's true. He's not lecherous. It is kind of an innocent.
Yeah, he just wants to be friends, and that's why he's even like, "Oh, we'll bring him over." When she says, she has a date, and he gets all crestfallen, and then he's like, "Oh, we'll bring him over." It's not. He doesn't even see it as competition because he just wants to be. He genuinely just wants to be friends with Dana Barrett, and he's just that over-eager neighbor who we've all had at one point, where it's like, know your boundaries. Like he does push that, but I don't think it's a sexual kind of fiendish way. I think it's more of just he's genuinely an overly nice guy.
Fair enough. I mean, another thing I really loved, where, of course, the big scene where Vince Clortho chases Lewis out of his apartment, and he runs across the street to into Central Park and to Tavern on the Green, and he gets possessed. Like he tries to break into this restaurant. He tries to get into, get away from the big dog beast, while people are just in there eating, and of course he can't get in. And Vince Clortho basically takes him over and possesses him, and he screams. Everybody in the restaurant stares at it, waits a beat, goes right back to eating. It's very, very New York. Very New York
in the 80s, especially Tavern on the Green. That was the Upper East Side people in New York in the 80s. They were all wealthy and they didn't care about anyone. That was kind of the 80s all around. We all had a lot of money. Screw everybody else. We're going to live the way we want and be damned with the future. And now we're living in the future. And whoops.
Here we are. Yeah. Yep. Doing podcasts from our bedrooms. But yeah, it was a very just New York thing where people see insane things happen and people getting hurt, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, I got to get going back to my own life." I mean, Kevin, did you since this is a very New York centric film, although some of it's also I learned some of the stuff was shot in L.A., but we can get to that later. Like, did you go and visit any of the sort of New York landmarks that were in this film? Like, of course, the firehouse or
I've seen the firehouse, and the firehouse I drove by specifically to see it, and that was cool. And then I lived in the city for a little bit, and I was on a date in Central Park, and we were walking around, and I looked off on the horizon, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's the Ghostbusters building. That's Dana Barrett's building."
Yeah,
and the girl I was with was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh well, this isn't going to work out."
Who's Dana Barrett? It's like, honey, we got to talk, honey.
Is that somebody else you're dating?
It's like, this isn't working out. I asked you that question because I do remember, because my wife used to work at Columbia, and like whenever I'd go up to visit her, I'd be like, "Oh, this is where Ghostbusters took place. These are the stairs where Einstein did his best work as a patent clerk." I got tingles.
Yeah. No, it's a great location piece especially for us on the East Coast.
Right. I mean, but I did learn through the Netflix show that Trumbull mentioned, which is a show everybody should watch. The Movies That Made Us. It goes into like the background of a lot of 80s and 90s movies, and like kind of go, it really digs into like what really happened behind the scenes of this movie just to get it made. And it's really interesting. But yeah, a lot of the scenes in this movie were shot in L.A. The basement in the library was shot in L.A. The inside of the hotel, the Sedgwick, that was in L.A., where they meet Slimer. And well, there was something else that took place in LA, but I can't remember. Oh, the inside of the firehouse, all shot in LA.
Yeah, they shot a lot of this movie in LA. It seems like most of the interiors were in LA.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there really weren't the soundstage opportunities in New York or New Jersey in the 80s. Everything was shot in LA.
Yeah, and it also makes sense. You just do like a certain amount of location work in New York, and then you do the rest in LA, where you have more of the facilities, or at least you did back then. I understand even in the climax when they're in front of Dana's apartment building, where the ground opens up and swallows them up. They did some of that in New York, but they did a lot of that, the more effects heavy stuff in LA.
Yeah, well, you're not going to be able to create the ground breaking in half in New York.
They created some of that in New York, though. Yeah, because I watched it with the commentary, and they're saying that one of the locals was saying, like, hey, you're shooting a movie around here, right? Oh, yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to, because there's like a cop car that's in a hole in the ground.
Oh, really? Wow.
That was real. Yeah, apparently to do that, they cut off the front end of the cop car, and then they put that in a hole they set up on top of the real pavement. So,
oh, okay. That's surprising. Wow.
Yeah, it's funky.
Interesting.
There is that. So I rewatched the movie last night just to prep for this, because I take you guys very seriously.
Of course. Yes, we appreciate it.
Serious business here.
I watched I watched it on Amazon, and Amazon gives you notes as you're watching it, which is nice. I actually never noticed that. And it'll give you little trivia and little facts about the scene that you're watching. And the scene where the ground breaks open as they're going up to battle with Gozer, when the ground breaks open and they all fall in, it's very obviously 4 stunt doubles. Uh-huh. And all 4 of them are white guys. One of them is a little overweight. And if you freeze it, none of them look anything like the 4 actual Ghostbusters.
Did they put a stuntman in blackface for that?
Oh, God.
I think even at that point they had the good sense probably not to do that.
Okay. So it's just suddenly Winston is white for once.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It's 4 just white guys.
Winston has seen shit that'll turn you white.
Yeah,
that is true.
He's going to turn you white. That would.
They put that line in to cover. They should have just cut to Winston. Oh shit! I turned white again. Damn it!
Damn it! Again. All right.
Something I found myself wondering, like towards the middle of the movie, when like the Ghostbusters, they've done their first big ghost busting at the hotel, and then we have this whole montage of them becoming more popular and getting more jobs and all that. I really found myself wondering, how long is this supposed to cover? Is this supposed to cover weeks or months? Because if it's weeks, that makes more sense with them still having Dana as an ongoing case. If it's months, what the heck was going on with Dana's case during that time? But at the same time, they're making like the covers of national magazines and stuff.
I assumed it was like a month.
Uh-huh.
Like the whole thing was over the course of a month.
Okay.
And you got to think, without the internet, there wasn't as much interesting news back then. There wasn't. I mean, obviously, this would still be top news at any point, but you weren't so any story would get coverage constantly, because now a story you get, if you get 24 hours out of a story, it's a lot, because there's so much happening and so much, you just move on to the next story. Back then, they would milk a story for weeks, if
That's
not
true.
months.
Yeah. The news cycle is much faster nowadays. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. And oh, by the way, we got a little Larry King cameo.
We did.
Yes.
I don't know if he was still just a radio guy at this point, or if he had any sort of TV presence, because they don't really shoot his face full on. And by the way, did you know that Ron Jeremy is in this movie?
Wait, what?
Is he?
The porn star Ron Jeremy was an extra in Ghostbusters.
Did you see him? Where is he?
You see him in like one of the crowd scenes. I've seen like screen caps of this, and it is 100% true. It sounds like an urban myth, but no. Yeah, Ron Jeremy, who had, I understand, the nickname of the Hedgehog. He is in Ghostbusters.
Wow.
This might have been. I have no idea when the man got into porn or anything like that, or so he was making his living at that point. But yeah, that's a weird Ghostbusters fact.
Huh.
Wow, his IMDb must be. It's like, oh, porn, Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters porn parody. Ghostbusters.
I
have no idea.
saw not to go too far off on a tangent. I saw a horror movie. I can't remember what it was called. I used to do a podcast with a couple other comics where we reviewed terrible horror movies,
Mhm.
and it was something Sleepaway Camp. Terrible horror movie, just awful. But and I don't remember anything about it. But at the end, Jesus appears, and it was Ron Jeremy.
Oh my God.
And I was like, that sacrilegious. Whoever wrote that in and agree, like, everybody's going to hell. Everyone involved in this movie is going to hell.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So.
I don't even know what to say about that. That's a choice. That's a direction.
Oh,
that
yeah.
somebody chose to go in.
Yeah, that was an accidental casting.
Okay, well,
boy.
Since we sort of somehow segued into Born Stars, should we talk about the Dan Aykroyd dream sequence?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's talk about it, because like when I was a kid and I saw this, I was like, oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, blowjobs, that's what's up. But now I watch this as an adult. I'm like, why was this in here? This is weird.
Well, from what I understand, it's like a remnant of a deleted scene. They had a sequence where they went to some place to like check out the haunted house or something like that. And so that was originally a real thing, but I think they liked the gag of Dan Aykroyd like crossing his eyes in the middle of it so much that they had to get it into the movie somehow. So they just put it in as a dream sequence.
PG movie, people.
But again, it goes back to the 80s. Sex was funny. Everyone was having sex, even ghosts.
Right.
It was just a sexy time. And, it's just, and by the way, I think the 80s were probably the least sexy time. But yeah, it is a very odd scene. And I don't remember as an 8-year-old seeing that scene and thinking about it. But I would love to have be able to go back and ask myself, what was I thinking when that scene happened? Because clearly I have no idea what was going on.
She's probably just tickling his toes.
Yeah, where did she go? Why did she fall off the bed?
I don't know if I got what I was seeing, because I was like 11 when I saw the movie. So, and by the way, the woman playing the ghost is his real life wife, Donna Dixon.
Oh,
really?
So,
oh.
Yeah,
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool, but it's such a weird non sequitur scene. I mean, it's a funny scene, but it's just like, what is this doing here?
It's like, again, the definite choice. It doesn't have anything to do with the movie at all. It's just like, hey, let's put in this BJ scene with the ghost.
Yeah,
for shits and giggles.
You know what though? It's interesting that you said that, John. That it was possibly a scene from another scene that just didn't make it in, because it does make sense that because there's a lot more. Because if there was a little more context around that, it might not be as jarring.
Right.
But the fact that, if there was like, oh man, there's a leak in the containment system and some of these ghosts seem to be seeping out.
Right.
And oh my God, look what happened. One of the ghosts raped Dan.
Oh God.
But I mean, that's what happened, guys. I hate to break it to you.
Holy hell.
So
I guess that was non-consensual ghost sex. I hadn't thought about it in that regard. But you're absolutely right.
Hashtag me boo.
Oh no.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Oh boy. There it is.
I regret nothing.
I said what I said.
Another thing I like about this movie is, like, I actually buy the Venkman-Dana romance. They don't seem like, a lot of times in comedies you see like these severely mismatched couples. It's like, Adam Sandler and Salma Hayek.
Right.
It's just like, it's some schlumpy comedian with some supermodel. But here it's like, I can buy that Dana would find Venkman charming because Bill Murray's very charming.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I have a friend who batted way out of his league with his wife. Mm-hmm. And he's a very charismatic, charming guy who looks like a disaster, and his wife is gorgeous, and it makes sense.
Yes.
It's not one of those, it's not one of those like, how did this happen? Like, you get it. And it's the same. Absolutely. I don't think anybody ever watched. I don't think of any of the complaints of the movie. I don't think anybody would go, yeah, that Venkman could never get Dana. No, he totally could. He was slick. He made her laugh. You ask any woman, what's the first thing that they look for is a guy who makes them laugh.
Yeah, or a guy with Thorazine.
Or a guy who makes them laugh and has Thorazine.
Hey.
Are they actively looking for the Thorazine, or?
Yeah, I mean, and I think before this movie, Sigourney Weaver had primarily done. I mean, she had done some action movies. Of course, she was just coming off of Aliens, but
Mhm.
she also done like a lot of dramas too. So this was kind of her first foray into the comedy world, and
Mhm.
just happened to be this movie that's kind of a mix of comedy and a little bit of drama and a little bit of action. So it was a pretty good fit for her. Yeah, I totally buy their relationship too, and I think they have some pretty great chemistry in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was in. I might be wrong about this, but she was in Cabin in the Woods, wasn't she?
Yes, yes, she
She
was.
is.
And
Yeah.
I think she really likes those kind of crossover parts where I loved Cabin in the Woods. I think
Mhm.
I think it's a highly underrated movie, and it's very self. I love movies that are self aware,
No,
and
agree.
it is very self aware. And I think her part at the end as like the head of this agency trying to keep the world moving through this horrible device. I think the way when she shows up, she's one of those characters now. She's one of those actors who, when they show up in a movie, it's like, oh man, it's Sigourney Weaver. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think this movie, her being in this movie was like sort of a gateway to her to like, do like sort of more, more like sci-fi things and more action films, and just sort of maybe ingratiating herself into like a this sort of person to have like this sort of this longevity in a way, because people are like, oh yeah, Sigourney Weaver, Ghostbusters, all right.
Yeah, it
So
definitely
like when
earned her
she,
street cred.
yeah, exactly. Like so when she shows up in things like Cabin in the Woods, which is a fantastic film, people are like, oh, Sigourney Weaver, all right. All right, so we just talked about Sigourney Weaver.
Mhm.
Let's see, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Maybe we could talk about Annie Potts, who plays Janine Melnitz. It's a small role, but like I think she really, I still, I still like say sometimes to my friends, like when I pick up the phone, Ghostbusters, what do you want?
I think so. One of the interesting little tidbits the movie gave me when I was, I think maybe I read it, that the relationship between Janine and Egon was supposed to be a bigger part of the story,
Right.
and
Yeah,
there
they
was
have more
supposed
of
to
a
be more of
romance.
a romance, right? And they just decided that they just didn't want to waste time on it. But there still is a couple of instances where you see that she likes Egon, and Egon is a robot who doesn't respond to any of that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But
you
it
know,
it was weird, and I don't want to get too much into talking about the sequel. But once you get to the sequel, that's completely gone.
yeah,
And then
she's like digging on Lewis.
right,
She's hooking
and
up
they
with
had
him.
some crazy, and her character was very different in the sequel than she
Yeah.
was in this movie. But it was interesting because there are still some moments where you see that she says, there when they bring in Lewis Tully, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and she like she puts her hands on Egon, and she says something like, oh, I'm very, I'm scared for you, or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, it's strange because you constantly were waiting for something like that, something to happen with that, and then it just kind of never does, and not even it never does in a way where it's like, oh, it doesn't because Egon's a stiff. It just kind of fizzles out, and you could almost feel it in the movie that they were like, oh, we don't know what to do with this, just forget about it.
Yeah, but I don't feel like it's a big thing that didn't pay off. It's just like a very minor thing in the movie. I don't mind what they have in there with it. So, I mean, I think it works what we have in there.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, I agree though. Like, I really did feel like that there were sparks between them, or especially, or more maybe more from Janine's than Egon, because, like you said, he's like a robot who collects spores, mold, and fungus, and
Yeah.
he does not know the way love. What is that emotion? But like, I definitely felt like she really dug him, and like I did feel like they should have maybe explored that a little bit more. But then, like, I mean, from what I read, or from what I saw, I didn't read. From what I saw in the Netflix doc, like they were kind of shooting the thing at a fast pace because they had to hit a deadline. Like they had to have this film finished by June 8th, because like
Mhm.
the studio wanted it out by then. So because that's the beginning of summer and that's when they'd make the most money. And like I think they started this whole process, this entire film, like a year prior, which
Right.
should be
Yeah,
enough
and that's
time, but it
not a
wasn't.
lot of time for, especially
Yeah.
for a special effects heavy movie,
Oh
which
yeah.
this was.
Yeah.
And
So
and this is of course like a pre-digital era too. So we have to do all this stuff like through animation or optics or whatever.
Can I
right.
can I, can I say something about the visual of this movie
No.
that I
You shut your mouth.
and I think I'm going to fail to properly express it. But there's
Okay, go
something
for it.
about the look of this movie, and it might have been the way they taped the way they taped movies in '84 versus when they did the sequel. Because this was a sequel in '90.
89.
It was '89. Okay,
No,
so
no, wait, maybe what? No, no, it was the summer of '89. I remember because it was the same summer as Batman and
yeah,
Indiana
you're right.
Jones.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're right. But the movie has a very kind of grainy. I don't want to say harsh, but it has it gives you the feeling of it's like a bigger movie than than it actually was. The way
Uh-huh.
the shots were done, the way it looks, the feel of the movie just had a bigger feel to it. Like you were watching, like these four idiots came up with this idea, but it was like it ends up having this kind of almost global impact. You know, if Gozer was to win, and you kind of get that through the look of the movie. If you go and watch the sequel was shot very differently. The shots were different. The look of the movie was different, and it felt very. And that's why I always said it was a shot in the '90s because it felt very '90s. It had a very '90s look to it, and I think that. I mean, the sequel had a lot of problems, but I think that was almost one of the issues that when you looked at the movie, just looking at it, it didn't feel like the same movie as the original, and that always strikes me because when you watch this movie. The bigger scenes when they're when they're rolling out of the mayor's office and they have the army with them and everything, you're like, wow, people are like, this is a serious, like something's happening. And then when they roll up in front of the building and all the people are there and they have the priest and the rabbis and everybody's, and you're like, wow, this is like the whole city came together. You had a real feeling, and the sequel didn't capture that. And there's something really to be said about how they were able to make them such, and I mean, they did it in, like you said, in a year, but they still built this movie that had like kind of a whole universe behind it, and it felt like it did. Where the sequel didn't, and I didn't want to make this an '84 versus '89 discussion, but there's something about the look of the movie, and I don't think, and by the way, I don't think anyone would argue special effects don't hold up at all. Most of the special effects scenes are pretty bad, especially with the dogs, and the Slimer scene actually is pretty good, and But the special effects are probably the weakest link in this movie today.
They vary a lot in terms of quality, but because it's a comedy, I'm going to give it a lot more leeway than I would.
Absolutely,
like a summer blockbuster or something. I think they're some of the effects are bad, but there's almost a charm to them still partly because it's like old school effects. Like, there's like stop motion on the dogs and stuff like that.
Right.
They're going like Ray Harryhausen with the dogs at times.
Yeah.
Well, they built a life-size demon dog.
Yeah.
As a practical effect. Now I think he was laying down and they used him a number of times, the same thing in just different positions. But I mean, there is something to be said for the charm of practical effects.
Yes.
Yeah, like that cab driver scene with the rotting,
Totally.
like crypt keeper as a cab driver. That was terrifying when I first saw that.
That whole segment when first of all that song.
I believe it's magic.
Yeah, that song creeped the hell out of me, and then. When all the lights were traveling through, they were supposed to be ghosts traveling through the city and reinfecting the city. That whole scene is incredibly creepy, and it's in broad daylight. Which, by the way, making something creepy in broad daylight is an accomplishment. And
that's true. That's true.
And the music, just that music, and that song for an '80s song, because '80s music really doesn't hold up very well. That really, really holds up, and it was. That's just I watched it again. I watched it last night. It's a really powerful scene for what it was because that's kind of the climax of the movie.
Yeah, and actually, they had some really talented people designing monsters and ghosts. I know that one of the people who worked on Ghostbusters was the comic artist Bernie Wrightson, who is probably best known as one of the co-creators of Swamp Thing. So they had some.
Oh wow!
He came up with like some really cool looking monsters, and I just found a link with some of his concept sketches. I'll maybe we can tweet that out from the SNL Nerds account. It's really cool the stuff that he did. I think he worked on the sequel as well, but yeah. So, but yeah, the theme is good. There are some very '80s songs on it. I remember having like the soundtrack on cassette tape, and I would like listen to it mowing lawns when I was a teenager.
I always liked that one scene, the Elmer Elmer Bernstein song that
Yeah.
da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
I
Da,
mean,
da,
the
da.
score is great. I mean, he's he also did the scores for Animal House
Makes sense.
and oh, what else? Trading Places, I think. Like
Oh, nice.
he was the guy. Like after he did the score for Animal House, they had him doing a lot of comedies, and he really had the touch for that. He really enhances the comedy, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. He's
And again, the music matches the. Is it a horror? Or is it a comedy? It's
Hmm.
both, and it's seamless. The,
Yes.
the music captures at times, and the music can tell you, is this going to be a funny moment, or is this going to be, should I be holding onto my chair? And the music does it very, very well for the movie.
Yeah, that's true. That's
okay.
true.
Yeah, so the composer you were mentioning, Elmer Bernstein, I looked it up. So
Yeah.
his resume is impressive. He's also did the
Mhm.
score for Airplane, The Blues Brothers, American Werewolf in London, Stripes, uh, Trading Places, like you mentioned, Ghostbusters, Spies Like Us, Three Amigos, Funny Farm. I mean, the dude's
Wow.
he's had Cape Fear. Like, dude has had some hits.
Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I still remember that Cape Fear score. That was something else. Another thing I noticed towards the end of the movie when the Ghostbusters are in jail, like when they've defied Walter Peck one too many times and they're in a holding cell, the cop who comes gets them out is
Yep.
Reginald Vell Johnson.
Typecast.
My man.
Playing yet another cop. I mean, Reginald Vell Johnson from Family Matters and Die Hard. I would like to think that since his character wasn't named, I'd like to think that he's playing the same character that he played in Die Hard. And just at
Uh,
some point between Ghostbusters and Die Hard, he shot a kid and then just went to Los Angeles.
his dark origin story.
Yeah. And so thus we have a Ghostbusters Die Hard cinematic universe.
Oh wow! I mean, dude, you're blowing my mind right now.
Jeez.
Right?
I could see that. I mean, but that's also a great scene too, where they look over the
Okay.
blueprint and they explain to pretty much the audience exactly what's going on and what's happening, and how the building is actually a conduit, like a antenna to draw in all the ghost energy, created by Ivo Shandor and all that stuff. And as they're talking about this, all the other inmates are like kind of slowly gathering around and like, hey, what's going on over here? What are these guys talking about?
Well, when Egon is explaining it and he's getting more and more dramatic about it, and then he's like, and that's just what's happening now. And he like stands up and everybody's suddenly around and you see him kind of like look around. That is such a masterful. I love that. That whole sequence between the in jail and then in the mayor's office is my favorite part of the movie.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
I love that everybody else in the holding cell is also just sort of huddled up and gathered together like they're a part of this discussion.
So be good, for goodness sake.
whoa!
That's hilarious. And like obviously, they're drunks or whatever.
Right.
They're just dudes in a cell. They have nothing to contribute. But it's like something interesting to listen to.
Like, Gozer worshippers. All right, I'm listening.
Those are worshippers. Never study.
No studying.
That's a great moment too, where Ray just says to Venkman, "You never studied," and he says it with like genuine disdain. It's not like he's ribbing him. At that moment, he does not like Venkman.
No.
Oh god,
That's a well acted moment.
Well, and the mayor's office scene is my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in that scene is awesome. From the cop going, the walls in the 52nd precinct are bleeding, and I think I got the precinct wrong. And then when the archbishop shows up,
right?
Oh, your eminence,
Lenny. And you see Venkman's face because he's so excited to just be in the middle of all of this. And then he's like, I think Mike's right. You should listen to him.
Yeah. And I also love when Venkman's like he's turning the mayor around.
Yes.
It's like, if we pull this off, you will have saved the lives of millions of registered voters. And then there's just a quick cut to the Archbishop, and he just sort of nods
Yeah.
in approval, like, yeah, he knows how it works.
And the realization on the mayor's face, you see,
Yeah.
he has a tiny little smile. It's so brilliant because that's exactly what politicians are.
Yes.
That perfectly captures the focus of a politician. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be the hero."
Yeah.
And then it's just game over. He's just on
Right.
Ghostbusters side.
I mean, to your point, yeah, this scene I thought was just fantastic. I mean, the one scene that sticks out in my mind from this scene, of course, where as Walter Peck bursts in saying, "Yeah, these guys caused all of this. They put out this gas in the world. People think they're seeing ghosts, and then they come in and they quote unquote take care of the ghosts. It's all a sham." And then Ray says, "Yeah, we're not. We're just exterminating ghosts. Everything was working fine until we got shut down by Dickless over here."
Right.
And of course, the mayor says, "Is this true?" Peter waits a beat, says, "Yes, it is true. This man has no dick."
Yeah.
God, I love that line. My
That
God.
is brilliant. I mean, we take that.
Well, that's what I heard.
Yeah. We take that for granted now, but that is brilliant. I don't know if that was a scripted line or if it's improv.
I think it was scripted.
Yeah, I mean, whichever it is fucking hilarious either way.
Yeah, I mean, human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together.
Oh, yeah.
I still say that
Oh,
on
100%.
a regular basis.
You've said it several
Absolutely.
times on this podcast.
Damn straight. And I'll say it several more. I mean, do any of you guys have a favorite quote from this film that you still to this day say over and over?
I mean, one that I love. It's from early in the movie. I love when they go into the New York Public Library and they're interviewing the librarian who saw the ghost. And Venkman just says, "Are you, Alice, menstruating right now?"
What's that got to do with it?
And then he just stands up slowly and he just goes, "Back off, man. I'm a scientist." And Bill Murray just total deadpan throws it away. It is hilarious.
One of my favorite lines, and it's my favorite because I say it all the time, and it's such an overlooked moment. Is yes, have some.
I had a friend in college who would say that.
I think Rick Moranis was amazing in that whole scene, and just that. Would you like some coffee? Would I? Yes, have some. Yes, have some.
Yeah.
To be a college friend, I do have a friend of mine from college who did dress up as Louis Tully as possessed by Vince Clortho for Halloween a couple years. He got a spaghetti strainer, put some wires on it, put it on his head, and just wore his glasses and a messy blue polo shirt or messy blue
a friend of mine
shirt.
did that exact same costume for Halloween with Louis Tully with a colander on his head. It was a guy in my old
That's
improv
awesome.
troupe.
Is it the same friend?
What's that?
Is it the same friend? Wow.
I don't know. Was your friend named Dave?
No, John. It's John.
Okay.
My friend was John Accardo. All right, well.
We just
You're
had
friends with
almost had
another
an awesome
John?
moment.
Oh, hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, great Halloween costume idea, guys, for anybody who wants to do that.
I have a couple of questions about the climax of the movie. There were a couple things that just kind of popped out at me.
Mr. Stay Puffed?
What's that?
Mr. Stay Puffed? Or something else?
Well, in the lead up to that, Venkman says, Gozer says, choose the method of your destruction or something like that. And Venkman kind of explains it to the others. He's like, so if we think of J. Edgar Hoover will come and destroy us. So obviously, if you say that, you have just thought of J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah.
So why doesn't J. Edgar Hoover
Thought of
in
the
a dress
exact
just
same
come and
thing.
destroy them?
Yep.
Yeah, he maybe shouldn't have said that because, that you will think of, once you say it, you will think of it. That makes
Would have
sense.
been a very different ending.
It would have been. I would also be behind an ending where a giant J. Edgar Hoover in a dress. Maybe just a nice strapless number with some sequins.
Oh.
That would be great.
A big spender.
But, I realize that's just an efficient way to explain it to the audience.
But yeah, I mean, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, I mean, wow. I think this is one of the things that was from Aykroyd's original script, because I think when
Yes.
Aykroyd originally wrote the script, it had more of a different tone to it. And then when he got together with Ivan, he suggested bringing on Harold Ramis, and then they kind of rewrote it. But the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man thing, that was one of the holdovers from the original script.
Yeah, I understand Aykroyd's original script. It like took place in a future world, and there were like teams of Ghostbusters all over the world. It was like this new civil service thing, like the fire department
Yeah.
or the post office, and they and Reitman and Ramis sort of helped him scale back all his wild ideas into something relatable. And really, the movie builds beautifully because it starts out in more or less a regular world, and it just bit by bit it sort of takes you along this path and introducing more fantasy, science fiction, supernatural elements, and by the end we've got the giant marshmallow man parading through New York City.
And that is why I'm worried about the new movie.
All right, here we go. Let's get into it.
I have concerns
Okay.
that because you're already existing in this world. So
Right.
that happened. So I assume Afterlife is going to acknowledge both movies.
It seems like it. From everything I've heard, it takes place in the same continuity as.
So I didn't know if they were just going to disavow the sequel.
No. I mean, have you seen the trailers for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have that one scene where the girl is watching the old, "We're ready to believe you" ads on YouTube.
Right. No. But that was from the first one. I didn't know if it was going to.
He's asking if Ghostbusters 2 still happened.
Oh,
They're somehow disavowing Ghostbusters.
I assume that's canon. Is Ghostbusters 2 still canon within this universe?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think Ghostbusters 2 is so badly regarded that they would just totally write it off. Like,
No, I know. And the only reason I bring it up was because so after the first one happened, in the sequel, they suggest that like there was this whole push to say, oh, that was all, they made that up. It didn't happen like that. And it was all a hoax.
Right.
Then it happens again. And now there's a huge, river of goo under the city, and a dome forms over that museum. So you can't deny it again, right?
Yeah, there's
so
more physical evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you exist in a world where there are ghosts. This incontrovertibly happened. And now you have to move forward from that. And it's, however many, 23 years later, 22 years later. So you're starting from a point where you're not going to have that like wide-eye moment of like, oh my God, ghosts are real. Like this is like we're kind of existing in this scientific movie, albeit a comedy, and now there's ghosts because now we're already there. So so there can't be that moment of where they're like, oh my God. Now it's kind of got to be like, oh, we're doing this again. Like, they're back.
Right.
So it's going to have a very different sort of momentum to the movie.
It might be like a thing, and I'm just spitballing here. I have no idea how they're going to approach this. It might be a thing where it's enough time has passed since the originals that there's like a whole new generation of disbelievers now.
Yeah, because I think now we kind of live in a world where, people kind of get to choose what facts are real and what facts aren't. So,
deep
that's
fakes
possible.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll do. I probably have more concerns about it. It looks like it's largely taking place outside of New York. Maybe they're just holding New York stuff back. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like it's mostly take place in the city in Oklahoma, they're saying.
Yeah. So I'm a little concerned about that. Maybe that'll work brilliantly. I don't know. I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. And I'm also worried about it treading a little too much on our nostalgia, which is, it's a tough thing to do. Sequels are really tough. Now,
sorry about that.
And, sometimes dogs get demonically possessed.
Oh my God, what was that?
A thing that happens. Kevin has dogs, everyone.
That scared the hell out of me.
That was Gozer and Vigo.
That was Gozer and Vigo. You've named your dogs after Ghostbusters characters.
I did.
Okay, who brought the dog?
Okay. And since we are a very pro dog podcast, would you be willing to share pictures of Gozer and Vigo with us? You can be in the picture too if you want. All right.
Let's
do that. We'll post that.
Yeah. I mean, they don't look anything like their namesakes, but they're just big. They're just big. They're giant, fluffy, stuffed animal looking dogs. But
all right. Well, they sound adorable.
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're wonderful dogs who bark at literally everything.
Oh, wow. Sounds great.
Did someone just walk by your house?
Well, it's Halloween, so
Oh, yeah.
people keep coming up to the house, and
That's true. Yeah, I guess we are starting to get the trick or treaters now.
yeah,
I don't really get to trick or treaters in my apartment complex. So
you count yourself lucky.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. But yeah, let's talk about. I think you were mentioning the Ghostbusters Afterlife, because like I remember you saying on Facebook, another one of your concerns is you think this new movie, it's not as much a comedy as as the first two were. Like this seems to be like more of a Stranger Things kind of sci-fi drama
Yeah,
action movie than an actual comedy.
yeah. Did I say that? Did I say that it was a
No, no, no. Trumbull said that.
Okay, because it
Oh, I
sounded
said
like
it.
something I'd
Oh,
say.
okay.
I remember seeing you either you said it or you put it on Facebook.
I don't remember saying that, but
Oh,
okay.
all right. I
If
thought
you say it, I believe you.
who the hell
Yeah,
was it then? If it was
Well, I agree with what you might have said.
yeah, it might have been my first reaction to the trailer, and I've just forgotten it. I say a
Oh,
lot
you
of
know what? No, John, he's right, because I think we had an exchange on your post about it,
okay.
because the first trailer that was dropped, there was no funny in it.
Oh yeah,
They make
where
it
it was
they
just a
make it look
teaser
like
with the car, right?
right, and they make it
Yeah.
look, well, not just the car. No, the very first trailer, where full trailer, not just the car,
Mhm.
but the first trailer, there wasn't a single moment that looked funny.
Right.
And then the more recent one that they dropped, once they showed the mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Men, then you kind of get the sense that there's going to be some haha in it. But because I think we had a discussion about it, because for them to push the movie, the first view we get of the movie, the first look we get, and has no comedy in it whatsoever, it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, that's a little concerning, but yeah, I guess they were just looking to intrigue people, and I had to think so far back because that had to be like 2 years ago that they dropped the first trailer because it
Yeah,
was it was originally supposed to come out last summer,
right.
and just because of COVID, it's got pushed back like most movies.
But
Um,
I think especially since they are using the one kid from Stranger Things, and it
yeah,
seems to be almost like a YA type feel with the cast, really focusing on this next generation, and they're very young. They're teenagers, so you're
yeah,
always going to get that Stranger Things comparison.
and one of them's supposed to be like Egon's daughter or granddaughter or something.
Granddaughter, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder how they're going to approach that because, obviously, sadly, Harold Ramis is no longer with us, but we're in a world where there is a definite afterlife. So, how do you address why
yeah,
Egon is not there? In most any other type of movie, you could just say, yeah, he unfortunately died, like the actor did. But in the world of Ghostbusters, how is there not a ghost Egon floating
right.
around?
Well,
So,
and
I
I
wonder
hope, to
about
your
that.
point, I hope they don't do anything with that.
Yeah, maybe they could do like some sort of laser
I hope.
Harold Ramis or something. But yeah, that a lot of pitfalls with that.
okay, but either way, I'm gonna check the movie out in the theater. Like
Yeah,
I have enough love and I have enough love for this movie and this franchise to go check it out. And plus, the fact that Jason Reitman has directed it, and I think
uh-huh.
he knows how important it is for the fans to get this right. So it seems like
And
every time I see him do interviews, he's constantly assuring people like, no, we pay homage to the original, we got it right. It's not. He seems
yeah,
to kind of be distancing himself from that that 2016
well, they got
issue.
so much flack for the 2016 version,
Yeah.
and like I still have not seen that version, not because of any stupid like women shouldn't be Ghostbusters thing. It was just because I was sick of most of the people who were in it. Honestly, like the only
Right.
one that I was like really gung ho about seeing was Kate McKinnon, and that's just 1/4 of the cast. I've seen like a few minutes of it on TV, but that's it at this point.
It's bad.
At this point, I'm saving it for us to cover it on the podcast.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, and that's just mainly because from what I've seen in the trailers and the commercials for it when it was out, I was like, oh, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look really funny, and I decided not to just see it just based off that. There wasn't anything in it from the trailers I saw that made me want to go out and see it.
Right.
And again, I feel weird like saying that because like it's one of those things where it's like you said, John, like where if you say you didn't see this movie, then automatically become a woman hating man. And
You're a sexist.
yeah, why do you hate women? Yeah, and it's not that. I want to see women succeed everywhere, but like this movie it just didn't look good. It didn't look funny. See that your dog agrees with me. It didn't look good.
He did. He was fully on board with that.
Did you see it, Kevin? Did you?
I did.
You weren't nuts about it, right?
No, it was terrible.
Is that fair to say?
It was terrible.
Okay.
Without getting too far into it, the problem with the 2016 movie is that as where we were saying that our concern with Afterlife is that they didn't show any comedy, is the 2016 movie was just comedy.
Mm-hmm.
It completely lost the sci-fi horror feel that the original Ghostbusters captured so well. And it was just super shticky. It felt like one long SNL sketch that never ended. And if Ghostbusters had never existed, and maybe if they just made that movie, it wouldn't have been as bad. But being that it had to live up to the original, that was such a great movie, such a great movie, it didn't even attempt to capture what made it such a great movie. They just thought, oh, if we put 4 funny people together, it'll work. No, there was so much more going on behind Ghostbusters 84 than just the cast. There was a great screenplay. And this movie did not have that at all.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. It seemed like it was more comedy funny than, sci-fi, horror and action. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the chemistry between the cast members it seemed maybe a little off here and there, which is weird because they're all 4 funny people, But
sorry, John. And again, it goes to the point that we were talking about earlier. They were all 4 funny people, where in the original Ghostbusters 84, they each knew their part. Egon wasn't cracking jokes. Ray wasn't necessarily cracking jokes. Peter was the funny man. Ray and Egon were there to, for Peter to react on. And in 2016 movie, everybody was supposed to be funny and outlandish.
Oh, so there wasn't as much contrast among the characters.
No, they were each just their ridiculous. It was like a caricature of it. It missed on literally almost every beat of the movie. There was the only scene that I thought was like, oh, I appreciate that. There's a scene where they test out the proton packs for the first time, and they like go in an alleyway and they're trying to shoot them, and it like goes badly. And I was like, oh, I respect. Like at least they acknowledge, kind of, because they say in the elevator, we've never tested this equipment. So at least they kind of nodded to that a little bit.
Okay.
But that was the only scene where I thought, oh, that was, they put in a little bit of effort there. Other than that, the whole movie was terrible. And Chris Hemsworth was terrible. Like everything was just bad. It was just a terrible movie.
I remember like in the lead up to the movie when I was seeing like things like the designs, and they're obviously like trying to play homage to the original a lot with the looks of the suits and the proton packs and even the Ecto-1.
Oh, I still want to drive the Ecto-1 one day.
But it was all so close to the original. It really just made the female casting seem like more of a gimmick because that was the only thing that seemed different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of like when they made a female version of Pac-Man and they called it Miss Pac-Man, but it's still basically Pac-Man.
Right.
It was like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I really just wanted to see more in the previews, like, well, what's different about this one outside of these Ghostbusters are women? So yeah, that put me off a little bit. And also I just, at that point I was like very sick of Melissa McCarthy because she was everywhere. I was sick of Kristen Wiig. I never liked Leslie Jones very much. So
yeah,
I was like, I want to see Kate McKinnon having a great big breakout role in a comedy movie, but I don't know if I'm going to watch 2 hours of the others right now. So
no, don't do it to yourself.
Well, I mean, we will because we watch things here at the SNL Nerds.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we got to do an episode about this immediately.
You've been warned.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. One more thing I want to mention about the movie. Towards the end of the original 84 Ghostbusters, Winston has the line, like after they just get blasted by Gozer or Azul, I forget which. He says, "This job is not worth $11,500 a year." and I got curious. Like, okay, so he's earning 11,500 a year as a Ghostbuster. So I found an inflation calculator site, and I wanted to find out how much that is in 2021 dollars.
Hit me.
You want to guess?
Well, it's got to be like, what, 30 maybe?
Yeah, you're very close. It comes out to $30,361.55.
Jesus.
Wow.
Which I just did the math on that. That would be $2,530 a month in New York City.
Oh.
So yeah, Winston is way underpaid.
Yeah, that's like, oh man, you got to start a union or something.
It's funny, I never noticed that line.
I don't know if the other Ghostbusters are getting more because they're like the founders of the business. Yeah, he says it's almost a throwaway line. He just says this job is not worth 11,500 a year. He doesn't say 11,500, but he says 11,500. So
Well, he gets room and board, so that's worth something.
Is he living there? Yeah, I guess he is. I guess he is living at the firehouse with the other guys.
I mean, I would.
Yeah, sure. You get to slide down that pole.
Yeah, I mean, this pole is great.
Well, then, John, to challenge to reuse your inflation calculator, the kid in the beginning who was only getting $5 to get shocked. Today, he would have been getting $13, which is still not enough to get elected.
That is true. And, also we have the whole third mortgage question where they get their startup capital by putting out a third mortgage.
19%. You didn't even
bargain with it. It's going to be like 95,000 with interest.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to bring up this point because I'm wrong. But I had this theory that the house they inherit in Afterlife, although they say it was Egon's, was somehow that house that Ray mortgaged because that was the only time you ever heard about a house. And I thought he said when they were coming out of the bank, that farmhouse has been in my family for years. He doesn't. Yeah. He just says that house has been in my family for years. So I the whole time I was like, oh, it's going to turn out that Ray gave the house to Egon or something, but it's not.
Maybe like when the Ghostbusters became a success again in Ghostbusters 2, Egon was able to use some of that capital to buy back Ray's family house. But
I appreciate you trying to make this theory work for me.
Yeah. I'm all about the cool fan theories. Yeah, I've seen that meme on the internet a few times where they're like, "Oh yeah, Ray definitely lost his parents' house because they went broke between Ghostbusters 1 and 2. So how could he not, especially with that huge interest rate?"
Right.
It's very true. Oh boy. All right, guys. So I mean, is there anything else we want to talk about this movie? And Kev, like,
it's good.
Overall thoughts, opinions and feelings.
It's good. I panicked.
I will say this. I got a chance to watch it recently, probably 3 weeks ago. A friend of mine who lives down the street had a movie night where they put up, a big outdoor movie screen, and there were a bunch of kids watching it for the first time, and they were probably 7 to 9 years old. And the scene in the library when the ghost jumps, they all screamed, and it made me so happy.
It's so nice when like the movies you grew up on still work.
Yeah, I almost started to cry. I was like, it's still got it.
Beautiful.
That's great. I mean, I think it still works beautifully. I mean, it's still funny as hell. I wish I could see it with an audience again. That would be a lot of fun. I'm sure I saw it on some anniversary re-release or another, but yeah, I was really kind of wishing like, I wish I could see this in the theater again.
I feel like it would be a Rocky Horror type experience where everybody would just be repeating the lines out loud.
That might get annoying.
And,
I bet you're right.
Yeah.
And if you're not all on board with that experience, it could be pretty obnoxious.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some other trivia I just found out about it. The role of Gozer, they offered it to Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman, but apparently he turned it down.
He was supposed to be Shandor. He was going to
the architect, right?
Yeah, he was going to appear as Shandor and then morph into Gozer, the woman that we end up seeing, and that was going to be Gozer's final form.
Interesting. So and they just axed that, right? Or did he turn down the role?
I think I don't know he might have turned down the role, but I think they just axed the whole thing because they wanted to go with something bigger.
That makes sense.
Right, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, guys, overall, I mean, Ghostbusters. I mean, Mike, it's a timeless classic, quotable as hell. I mean, to this day, I still want to maybe one day drive the Ecto One and strap a Proton pack to my back. Like, if anybody is listening that can make that happen, please let me know. But I mean, my God, this film is just—it warms my heart. Like I've seen this film 100 times, and I still smile like a child every time I see it. It's if you
Absolutely.
haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life? Go make your life better and watch this movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
seriously. I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, this is partly nostalgia talking, but I think it still works great. I think it's still a great film, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the new one. I hope they do the original proud. That would be nice.
Little Reitman, don't let us down.
Ugh,
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so yeah, moving on. John, I know there was something you wanted to mention before we start talking
yeah.
about the music video.
We'll get into the music video in just a little bit. Yeah, there is something that I wanted to mention. One of our recent guests on the podcast when we covered the 2004 Starsky and Hutch movie was my friend Greg Hatcher, who writes with me at the Atomic Junk Shop website. But unfortunately, Greg just passed away this week. He passed away this last Thursday, and I just wanted to note that he had a fair amount of health problems the last few years. He was dealing with cancer, and yeah, it was he put up a good fight, but you know, it eventually gets us all. So it's and I'm gonna miss him a lot. He was a good guy. He's a great guest for the podcast. He's one of the most knowledgeable people about pop culture trivia that I have ever known. So
Mm.
yeah, so rest in peace, Craig. Just wanted to give him a shout out.
No, absolutely. Guys, go back and listen to the Starsky and Hutch episode we did back in August. Wasn't even that long ago. But
Yeah,
I mean, it's a shame they get that news, and just I just hope all's well with him and his family and his wife, who you mentioned
yeah.
also has a GoFundMe up.
I thank you for the reminder. I should also mention his wife Julie. They've started up a GoFundMe to help her out, help Julie recover from losing Greg. If you search for that, and if you can donate anything to that GoFundMe, yeah, please do. So just GoFundMe.com /F/ help Julie recover from losing Greg. And you should find it. So thanks for the reminder. So on happier news, we're also going to talk about the Ghostbusters music video with the world famous theme song by Ray Parker Jr.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this video in a while. And I mean, when you mentioned you want to talk about it, I was like, oh yeah, Ghostbusters. I mean, we all know the theme song now plays. I mean, it plays every Halloween at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much like that Mariah Carey Christmas song. But
Good.
yeah, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I don't remember. I haven't seen the video in a while, and I think there was, I guess, a little bit of controversy around the song because I think they originally wanted like Huey Lewis and the News to do it, but they didn't want to do
Right.
it, so they hired Ray Parker Jr. and like the song he came up with sounds a lot like "I Want a New Drug."
Yeah, they actually sued Ray Parker Jr. for plagiarism, citing the similarities between his theme song and "I Want a New Drug." And it says here that it says on the IMDb trivia that the dissimilarities between the two songs, different chord sequences, different refrains, different bridge, were greater than in other cases, and the general feeling among musicians was that the judgment was unjust. So apparently, he was found guilty of plagiarism
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
on that. So
I mean, I don't think it's not as blatant as dun 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 dun.
Dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun dun.
no, mine goes.
dun 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 dun. Dun. Just that little change. It's not the same.
Oh, Vanilla, where have you gone?
Oh, vanilla.
Oh, Vanilla.
So that I haven't watched that movie video or music video probably since it was on MTV in the 80s. I watched it today because again, I take this very seriously.
Of course.
And I was, first of all, it also has a very rapey feel to it.
Yeah.
Which is
a lot of 80s music videos feel very rapey in retrospect. It's a lot of like the musicians singing to women who are sleeping and they're in their bedrooms
Yeah.
and they're like pulling the covers down and she's in like a negligee type of thing.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah.
Really, and you know, I try not to get too PC with things, and I try to, being a comic and trying to keep an open mind. But
Right.
there are some things where, you know, I'm glad we've advanced,
Yes.
and it's, you know, probably, you know, what 15 years ago wouldn't have given me pause. I'm glad that it makes me go, that's
That's
Yeah, I mean that's good because it shows you're evolving as a human.
yeah. It's like maybe
And
maybe
also-
sneaking into a woman's neon light filled bedroom and pulling down her covers while she's in lingerie. Maybe that's a little creepy.
yeah, maybe that's not the way to go.
Yeah, but I was surprised. And I didn't remember this at all with all the cameos in it.
There's a ton of
And
cameos.
why?
I've got a list of all the people who cameo, and it is a very random collection of celebrities. You got Chevy Chase, you've got Irene Cara from Fame, I guess is what she's best known for.
Right, and that "What a Feeling" song. What a feeling.
What a feeling.
Oh,
Yeah. We got John Candy. He's not in the movie, but he's in the music video. We've got Melissa Gilbert from Little House on the Prairie. That's very random. We have Ollie E. Brown, who I did not recognize, but I Googled him, and apparently he was a drummer and a session musician, and he produced the Ghostbusters single. So that's why he's in there.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, Jeffrey Tambor.
That's random. That's weird.
How did Jeffrey Tambor get into this video? What was the connection?
Is he Ivan's buddy? Like, what? Why is he here?
I don't know. George Wendt from Cheers. Norm from Cheers. Al Franken, who's apparently imitating Mick Jagger.
Well, I assume some of that was SNL connection.
I mean, they're obviously the SNL connection, yeah. Danny DeVito. Okay, yeah, I understand that. Carly Simon. That's a little weird.
Yes.
Peter Falk. Columbo is in
Columbo.
this video.
That right at the end.
Right at the very end. We just have a sudden Columbo. Did somebody on the crew murder somebody?
Excuse me, Mr. Ghost, I have a question.
And then at the very end, Terry Garr pops up.
Yep. Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess she knew Bill Murray from Tootsie. Maybe that's how that happened. I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
and
maybe.
we also have all four of the Ghostbusters dancing behind Ray Parker Jr. in Times Square.
Oh yeah, doing that little point and kick.
Yeah.
That's the best part of the video.
That's awesome. And like, did they shoot this at the same time they were shooting the movie, or did they do this months later and get all the guys back into their Ghostbusters?
I bet it was months later.
Because it looks like their hair was growing out a little bit.
Yeah.
Aykroyd's hair looked a little longer to me.
I think it was probably after the fact. There's no way they could have coordinated that.
Yeah, and Bill Murray and Aykroyd get close-ups, but Harold Ramis and
Ernie Hudson
Ernie Hudson, they're shit out of luck.
Yeah, I know. I think
it makes the hierarchy of Ghostbusters very clear, I think.
Oh yeah.
Oh. But yeah, I mean, guys, watch the video if you haven't seen it in a while. It still tickles my nostalgic fancy.
Yeah,
and we don't get theme songs anymore like that.
Yeah,
no, I mean that was like the thing. You had like this. You had Holiday Road and the Vacation movies.
Yeah.
You had
the Goonies song.
Cyndi Lauper had a Goonies song.
Of course, Back to the Future had one, and of course, Spies Like Us.
Yeah,
Caddyshack.
Right.
Yeah. I mean that would be the thing. You have a big comedy movie. You have a nice catchy theme song, and you play it in the closing credits to get everybody's toes a tapping. But
not anymore. No movies really have theme songs anymore.
I guess they don't want to waste the time on
it. The most recent big movie that I can remember having a song where it was like, oh, that's the theme song, was Terminator 2, Guns N' Roses, You Could Be Mine. And that had a video that was tied to the movie.
Right.
It was played in the movie. And I can't think of after that
Well, the Celine Dion Titanic song, that was pretty big.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. But beyond that, I feel like there have to be some that we're forgetting. But yeah, that doesn't seem to be a big thing anymore. And it's weird because it's like another area of merchandising. Because if the song's a hit, it promotes the movie, and vice versa.
I read
You know?
that song added $20 million to the take of Ghostbusters.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, that's
I
real
remember, like, that song got so big that Ray Parker Jr. guest starred on a sitcom. He guest starred on "Gimme a Break."
money.
Do you guys remember that show with "Gimme a Break" with Nell Carter?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
I remember Give Me a Break. I don't remember him being on it.
I remember this episode, like, that they had some contrivance to have, because he's playing himself. He's playing Ray Parker Jr. on the show, and the girls in the family, they're all freaked out. And at one point, like, somebody goes to the phone and he says, "Who are you going to call?" And the girls just both go, "Ghostbusters!"
Oh my
And that's
god!
literally the only thing I remember about the episode.
Huh.
I have no idea if it's on YouTube or whatever, but
Oh, the
and
80s.
I mean, is it fair to say that this is my favorite Ray Parker Jr. song? Is it yours?
Uh,
Because I mean, he has so many hits to choose from.
yeah. There's that other song, and what's the other
It's
one?
definitely my favorite Ray Parker Jr. song.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're all agreed it's the best Ray Parker Jr. song, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think if you go and buy his greatest hits album, it's just this song like 5 times or 9 times
On
in
a
a row.
loop.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very just remixes of this song,
Yeah.
instrumentals, a cappella.
But yeah, it's a fun song. It's a fun video, even with the rapey vibes and the budget of like $1.98.
You didn't like the neon telephone? That didn't do it for you?
I did like the neon telephone just because it's so 1980s.
Yeah. This whole video is so 1980s.
The video just screams 1984.
The fact that they
doesn't it?
just superimposed Ray Parker Jr. over scenes in the movie where physically he didn't even fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the music videos that like tie in with big blockbuster movies, they always edit in clips of the movie because it gives you higher production value. And,
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I remembered another one.
What's
The Godzilla 2000 and whatever.
the Wallflowers. They did the David Bowie.
Wallflowers and P. Diddy. P. Diddy had a song.
Oh, I don't remember the.
Oh, is that
P.
when he redid the Led Zeppelin
Yes.
Kashmir?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
jeez.
And that video has Godzilla in it. He's like in a broken building and Godzilla's walking around.
Oh God! Like,
And
come
it's
with
as
me.
terrible as it sounds. The whole thing is terrible.
I remember each one of the Batman movies, like the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher Batman movies. They had like you had Seal, "Kiss from a Rose."
You had the Prince. You had Prince.
You had Prince doing the soundtrack of the first movie. I'm still scratching my head over that one. And U2 had a song for
Yeah.
the last one, "Hold Me,
Yeah.
Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me," something like that. I'm probably getting the order wrong, but yeah. And there was like an animated thing with Bono as a Joker type.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Prince. Prince dressed half as Batman, half as Joker.
That video is bizarre.
Vicky Vale. Vicky Vale.
Ooh yeah, I want to bust that body.
Jesus.
I would like to be a fly on Kim Basinger's wall when she first heard the Bat Dance song and she gets to that lyric of "I want to bust that body."
Damn.
I don't know if she was dating Prince or what, or if it was just Prince is just like, yeah, I'm gonna just talk about how I want to fuck Kim Basinger in the middle of my song.
I'm Prince. What are you gonna do?
I'm Prince. I'm a sexy man. I can pull this off.
Yeah, baby.
I'm the sexiest man under 5'5".
Yeah, the Bat Dance video is seriously weird. That's a weird one.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, and I guess that's the episode, guys. I mean, Ghostbusters. I mean, it still hold, like I said before, hold a special place in my heart. Warms my soul, my body. I mean, I can't say enough good things about this film.
Yeah,
I think about it every day when I talk to my dogs. So
Aww.
That's nice.
You ask them if they're a god.
Yes. Well, they are. The way we treat them in this house, they are
Right.
gods. There's no
And they bark and they say yes.
Yeah. Someone asks if you're a god, you say yes.
That's a great line. That's
Yeah.
another great line. I mean, there's so many great lines
Yeah.
in this movie. And it's,
Aim for the flat top.
Ghostbusters works like gangbusters, I say. That's my little poll.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Cross the streams.
Oh, by the way, a little bit of trivia we didn't mention. They nearly didn't get the name Ghostbusters for this movie.
We could do a whole nother episode on this.
Because there was a Filmation show, a live-action Saturday morning show called The Ghostbusters. And that was why the cartoon ended up being called The Real Ghostbusters, because Filmation had the television rights.
Well, there was a live action show called Ghostbusters that featured the two guys, a gorilla, and a flying car. Which just explaining that sounds like an acid trip. and then once Ghostbusters 1984 movie came out, they took that TV show because they wanted to capitalize on the name, and they made a cartoon based off of the TV show and just called it Ghostbusters. Right. And it was again about these two guys, a gorilla and a flying car, who drove around stopping ghosts. And it was terrible, but they were just going to capitalize on the name of the success of the movie. And when they decided to make the cartoon off of the movie, they had to go with The Real Ghostbusters because they optioned the rights to Ghostbusters for the movie, but they weren't able to get it for the cartoon.
Right. And it was like touch and go licensing the name for the movie.
It was up to like the last week or something.
Yeah. And it would have, I mean, and it's not like today where you could just go in digitally and change it wherever it says the word Ghostbusters on screen and redub everything. They would have had to reshoot a lot of stuff.
It was going to be Ghost Bashers or something?
Ghost Breakers.
Yeah.
Ghost Breakers.
Jeez. And I think there were a few other things they considered, but thankfully, on the movies that made this episode about Ghostbusters, that they have one of the guys, like one of the producers, when they were shooting the end sequence of the movie where everybody in the crowd is chanting Ghostbusters, like one of the guys got on the phone with the studio and he was like, listen to 300 people chanting the word Ghostbusters.
The whole city is cheering for them.
You have to clear this name.
Yeah. It's like the scene in Back to the Future where he's like, Marvin Barry? That's what you're looking for?
Well, listen to this.
Oh, that's another movie I could just quote verbatim.
Easily.
Yeah. I mean, those movies that you saw at the right age, you saw them at that impressionable age. You just carry them with you for the rest of your life.
I am your density. I mean destiny.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on this podcast.
Thank you for having me on to talk about this. I could talk about this all day. I really enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
This was so much fun. I mean, as soon as we knew we were going to do Ghostbusters, I was like, we got to get Kevin. He's the biggest Ghostbusters fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we do an episode about the sequel or whatever else, we'll have you back.
Bring me back.
Done.
Okay. You want to talk about Ghostbusters too? We'll bring it back.
I'd love to.
All right. It's a date. So, Kevin, where can people find you on the internet? Is there a Twitter account they can follow for you?
You can go to my website, kevinisrael.com. I have my comedy schedule up there, and you can get all my website handles or my social media handles on Twitter and whatnot. And then you can also listen to Gutting the Sacred Cow podcast. We have new episodes every week. Right now we have JFK up. Every week we have a guest come on and argue his case for why a beloved or successful movie is actually overrated. It's a really unique take on the movie review podcast. It's a lot of fun, and it's really pissed a lot of people off, which is exactly what we were looking to do. So Kevin Goatee and I are on guttingthesacredcow.com. And I have an album out called The Struggle is Real. You can get on iTunes and everywhere else you get your sound stuff.
All right. Yeah. So, on this podcast, we built up Ghostbusters. If you want to hear Kevin tear down a movie, go listen to Gutting the Sacred Cow.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And guys, that's our episode. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, you could follow us on Twitter at SNL Nerds Show. You can always check out the podcast at Non-Productive Network, non-productive.com. We got a Patreon up. Give us money to our Patreon and help us, make this thing flourish and grow and all that good stuff. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Darren Credible. That's DARIN Credible.
And you can follow me on Twitter at TrumbleComic. That's TRUMBULL and the word comic. So, and next week we're back with SNL is back with another live episode where they're going to have Kieran Culkin hosting. Have they announced who the replacement musical guest is going to be?
They have not, and they're playing it. They're getting close to the wire here because I mean, it was supposed, like, for those that don't know, it was supposed to be Ed Sheeran was supposed to be the musical guest, but literally maybe 5 minutes after we recorded the last SNL Nerds episode, it came out that he had COVID and he was he was quarantining. So now there's
I actually taped an intro for the last episode talking about that. So
I heard the baby doesn't have much to do. Maybe they can get him.
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe they should call in Ray Parker Jr. He's still around.
There you go. Dun 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 dun. You could do the Ghostbusters theme song twice. I would actually tune in for that.
Absolutely would.
I would 100% tune in for that. But I'm sure they've got somebody by this point, and maybe we'll find out when they record their promo. So it's a fun little adventure. It'll be Kieran Culkin and somebody.
TBD.
So. TBD. They're good.
Oh, they're very good.
They're the next BTS. So join us next week and we'll all find out who the musical guest is together. So until then,
Nerds out.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.